There are many games where the story behind the scenes is often more exciting than the actual game itself. Like many games, Mission Impossible did have a rocky development cycle, and during its 3-year development, hype really began to build around it that this would be the GoldenEye or Metal Gear Solid killer. But before we look at the finished article, we must go back to the Super Nintendo and Genesis to see where this game began. When Ocean first announced they had acquired the rights to make a Mission Impossible game to tie in with the movie of the same name, fans everywhere were excited to see a 16-bit iteration of the series after Konami's first efforts on the NES. The 16-bit Mission Impossible was very much a flashback-esque affair, and it even had the likeness of Tom Cruise to boot. The problem was that the game was nowhere near completion, and the 16-bit era was coming to an end, so Ocean were left with the tough decision to drop their side-scrolling action game. The game was restarted with development coming out of sunny California. It was hoped that the first 3D stealth action game would arrive on the N64 in the summer of 1997, and also with an N64 DD expansion pack to follow later. After many challenges and difficulties, the development team really broke up, and the key team members left the project to work on other games. You'd have thought that with the game having been left for dead twice already, that Ocean would give up on the project altogether. After having pumped so much money into getting the license and missing the movie tie-in window altogether, Ocean's new owners Infogrames gave the game one last chance to live. Moving the game's development to Leon, a new team was tasked with resurrecting the embers of this once promising game and trying to rekindle the promise it had once shown. With Tom Cruise refusing for his likeness to be used in games due to his disdain for violence in video games, the lead character underwent a dramatic change, as well as some of the other key characters in the game to make it visually more appealing and also to bypass any legal issues. Not wanting to be tied in with a scene-by-scene recreation of the movie, the developers used the key points of the movie to drive the game story forward, but offered themselves enough leeway to create something quite distant from the movie. But while they cut out key characters and aspects of the movie, one area they didn't cut back on was the sheer amount of gadgets contained in the game. Everything you remember from the series and the movie are here, from the explosive chewing gum which you use to break out of an interrogation room, to rubber mask facing disguises which you use to fool those around you. Sadly, the stealth in the game does feel a little restrictive, as it does essentially involve you moving from point to point, picking up a disguise and then moving freely to the next point where you'll do the same again. However, it is perhaps one of the coolest parts of the game, and the enemies will even react to suspicious behaviour even when you are in disguise. So if you're stealing the identity of an accountant, you can't just walk around with your gun drawn. The campaign in the game consists of 5 interconnecting missions which are broken down into 20 smaller levels, taking place in different parts of the globe. I really enjoyed how each mission felt completely different than the previous one, and each mission also contains its own unique gameplay styles and cool cinematic style intro video. Whilst the majority of the game is a third-person shooter of sorts, the game occasionally throws out a first-person turret level or a sniper level where you must track and protect Ethan as he makes his way through the train station with undercover agents trying to take him down. And for those asking, yes, the ceiling descent dodging lasers in the server room is in the game, and it is perhaps one of the more frustrating levels contained in this game. Whilst these levels do break up the gameplay and offer something refreshing and unique, this is also where the game begins to show its weaknesses. Whilst it's no doubt a fun game to play, it does have its flaws, and its biggest one is that it tries to be every type of game for every type of gamer. None of the levels in the game are perfect, and some are either frustratingly difficult or ridiculously easy. Take for instance the first 2 levels which make up the complete first mission. You enter a sub-base, steal a disguise, hand in a delivery note, find some mines, plant it on a sub and then escape. All of this can be done in a matter of minutes, and this is on your first playthrough. But don't be too disheartened. Whilst the first mission gives you a false sense of ease in the game, things do become more challenging as you enter the later missions, where you have to string together a near perfect set of events in order to complete your mission. To add some replayability, there are 2 difficulty modes, possible and impossible. I don't think I need to explain the difference, but in a nice touch, Impossible mode does give you some extra tasks in some of the game's levels, and the enemies are also a lot more aggressive and you do take more damage. I'd love to say that the game's AI will be your biggest challenge. After all, it's an espionage game, so you'd perhaps expect some good AI, but the enemies are quite simply retarded and do little more than run directly at you shooting. It's the controls, however, that will cause you more problems than the enemies. For a game that was designed for the N64, you'd have expected some nice fluid movement with the analog stick. However, Ethan Hunt moves stiffly and awkwardly. The controls are also quite unresponsive. There are countless times when you'll be pressing a button to make an action, and you'll either be in the wrong position or can't quite face the right way that you need to in order to progress. Now, it doesn't kill the game totally, but when combined with the camera, which doesn't seem to want to stay in a comfortable position, it makes navigating the levels quite a challenge. Thankfully, it rarely gets stuck, but as soon as it finds a position which you like, it will then suddenly throw itself around and it becomes quite a distraction. Adding to the game's mediocrity are the graphics. It's hard to find such a mixed bag on the console. Whilst the internal scenes in the game have a nice texture quality and acceptable amount of detail for the time, as soon as you step outside things become a lot less impressive. The dreaded fogging is back, albeit in a deceptive way, and it's generally in the snow covered areas. The draw distance is also very poor and pop-up is quite prevalent wherever you turn. Some of the later levels in the game are also quite simply expanded rehashes of the earlier missions, so I felt that more detail could have been added given the ability to reuse a lot of the objects in the game. Perhaps for a lot of people though, the most memorable aspect of the game was its music. The game may have fell short in most other departments, but the score is pretty remarkable. Yes, the main theme is included, but the other music in the game is pure awesomeness, and anyone who's played the game will no doubt have started thinking of the Embassy song already. But the voice acting is also quite good during the intro sequences, and the occasional lines of dialogue from your character during the levels, and this is also a nice touch. The game is known for having some terribly written lines, but if you see this as adding humour rather than trying to be serious, then it is all in good taste. After all, whoever's forgotten the moment when you knock out a ticket conductor on the train and say, "Sorry for punching your ticket, but I needed to borrow your face." For me, Mission Impossible never really did live up to the hype. I picked it up from a friend who got it on launch day, and after a weekend we had both completed it. To be fair, it never could have lived up to the hype, especially after 3 years of development, and instead of realising the game was having major issues, my fragile little mind just thought that they were adding more cool stuff into the game. But that's not to say I didn't enjoy it. Despite the game getting very mixed reviews on its release, I did enjoy the short but fun time I had when playing the game. And going back to complete it for this review, I had exactly the same levels of excitement, frustration and addiction that I had all those years ago. The game was planned to be an N64 exclusive title, but a year later the game did arrive on the PlayStation 1. Whilst the development of the port was handled by Example Architecture, there are some minor differences. The voice acting has been altered to take advantage of the CD quality the PS1 can provide, and there are some better lighting and mirror effects. The texture quality in the PlayStation version, however, is much lower than the N64, so it's not quite as nice to look at. Regardless of which version you play, I do think you'll enjoy Mission Impossible. It's not going to be on anyone's list of the console's best ever releases, but whilst it lacks quality, it makes up for an innovation, and even with its flaws it will still have its moments which we'll love to experience. As always though, I'm just one guy with one opinion, so it's over to you. Did you, like myself, experience this first time around? If so, let me know if you liked it or disliked it. Or perhaps you waited to pick it up on the PS1 to see if the issues had been ironed out. Maybe you just skipped this game altogether and played its spiritual sequel, Mission Impossible Operation Surma. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below, but you only have 5 seconds as this video will self-destruct. And until next time.